So a couple months ago, I started watching Dr. Katz, Professional Therapist, on YouTube. I started watching it because I saw two different parodies of it, one from Family Guy, another from Arthur. So let's talk about the show. It's a good show. I like it. Now, basically, this is a show about a guy named Dr. Katz, who is a professional therapist. You know, he sees patients, multiple patients each episode. You also get his son, voiced by H. John Benjamin, before Bob's Burgers and Archer. His son is kind of a lazy, slacker kind of dude, a young adult, lives at home. To get kind of a perspective of what this show is all about, I think one thing to look at is a short called The Biography of Mr. Katz, which was essentially a pilot for the series. It aired a few years earlier. He's being interviewed for a biography, so it's just him kind of sitting and talking back and forth with the interviewer, the person who's writing the biography about him. And at some point, I think somebody was like, okay, I want to make this into a TV series. But they asked themselves the question, how would they do it? And I figure what most likely happened is, okay, we like the format of just kind of somebody talking back and forth with someone, telling comedic stories. They do kind of like flashbacks and stuff like this. But how do we do that? And it's like, okay, what's a profession that this guy could have where he's regularly talking to people back and forth? And what they came up with is a therapist, of course, It's a job that's talking to people. And this show is pretty much pure 100% comedy. The therapy, that he does with these people, it's not like serious, heavy stuff. This isn't like the HBO series In Treatment, where you get into all kinds of heavy topics. It's a comedy show. And basically all the people who he has come on are people who are real-life stand-up comedians a lot of people who went on to be famous, people like Ray Romano, Janine Garofalo. There was an episode I just watched recently where young Dave Chappelle, just sits there and talks about superheroes. Because basically all these young stand-up comedians, what they do is they just go into his office and they basically do their stand-up material in the form of therapy. And if you watch the end credits of each episode, it's like the episode is written by this person, and then it's like additional material by, and it's the comedian who's in the episode. So they just kind of come in and they do their material, and this is where the comedy comes from. It's pretty much all dialogue. The show does have some storylines to it, but it's pretty much just a dialogue-based series. And it's definitely enjoyable, but the show is not, for the most part, interested in telling stories. You often will get, like, a subplot involving his son, Ben, and kind of some antics he goes through. A lot of the show is just him talking back and forth with people. And we also get conversations, scenes that have conversations between him and his son, just talking about what's kind of going on in their lives and stuff. And if you're familiar with this kind of thing, you can tell these are very much improvised, because there's a lot more of a casual, laid-back nature to the way they talk that just has a very different kind of style to it than scripted, television. But the thing about the show is it's not interested really in telling stories. It's not interested in character development. It's definitely not interested in, emotional moments or anything like that. And what it kind of makes me want to make the comparison to, even though I make this comparison often, is to Family Guy, particularly in its modern era, which I kind of like. But the show started off as something that, with Family Guy, it started off as a series that was about telling story and having character development. And over time, it devolved into something that's just about telling jokes. It might as well just be like stand-up comedy or sketch comedy or something. Not just in the cutaways, but everything is just kind of like one-off jokes a lot of the time. There's exceptions, but in the modern era, a lot of it is just dialogue-based comedy. But the thing that this show works better than something like that is because it established itself as just being that right off the bat. It's always what it was. It didn't start off as something that different and then devolve into something that's lesser. It's just, this is what we are from the very beginning, and it commits to it and sticks to it, and it does it well. It's not the funniest thing in the world, but it's a funny show that can make you consistently laugh. So if you haven't watched it, check it out on YouTube. It's good.